I've always been drawn to the mysterious and unexplained. So when I stumbled upon an old decrepit mansion hidden deep within the woods, I couldn't resist the urge to explore. It was a gloomy autumn evening, and the trees swayed ominously in the fading light. The mansion stood like a looming specter, its windows shattered and its walls covered in ivy. The front door creaked open as if inviting me inside. My heart raced as I crossed the threshold into the mansion's eerie interior. Dust hung thick in the air, and the dim light from my flashlight cast long, eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper. It was like stepping into a forgotten world frozen in time. The mansion's silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant hooting of an owl. As I ventured further into the house, I noticed strange symbols etched onto the walls, their meaning lost to time. The air grew colder, and I could see my breath in the beam of my flashlight. I knew I should turn back, but curiosity held me in its grip. I descended into the basement, where the air felt even heavier, as if it were pressing down on me. The room was dominated by a massive, ornate mirror that hung on the far wall. Its glass was tarnished and cracked, and it seemed to draw me closer, as if it had a malevolent will of its own. As I gazed into the mirror, my reflection began to warp and shift, twisting into grotesque shapes. Panic surged through me, and I tried to tear my eyes away, but it was as if I were paralyzed. The room seemed to close in around me, and I felt a presence, something malevolent behind me. I finally managed to break free of the mirror's spell and turned around, but there was nothing there, just an empty, dimly lit room. My heart was pounding, and I knew I needed to leave, but a morbid curiosity compelled me to stay. I continued exploring the mansion, each room revealing more of its dark history. I found a library filled with ancient, dusty tomes that spoke of forbidden rituals and unspeakable horrors. The walls were adorned with portraits of sinister-looking individuals, their eyes following me as I moved. In one room, I discovered a diary, its pages yellowed with age. It belonged to a woman named Eleanor, who had lived in the mansion a century ago. She wrote of strange occurrences, of whispers in the night and shadows that moved of their own accord. As I read, I could feel a chill running down my spine, for her words mirrored my own experiences. The night wore on, and I realized with a growing sense of dread that I was no longer alone in the mansion. I could hear faint footsteps echoing through the corridors, and eerie whispers seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. I knew I had to find a way out, but the mansion seemed to shift and change around me, its layout becoming a labyrinth designed to ensnare me. I stumbled upon a hidden door that led to a narrow, winding staircase. It spiraled upwards, seemingly endless, until I emerged into a room at the top of the mansion. The room was dominated by a massive four-poster bed covered in tattered, blood-stained sheets. At the center of the room, a grotesque figure loomed, its features shrouded in darkness. As I approached, the figure slowly came into view. It was a woman, or at least, it had once been a woman. Her skin was pallid and rotting, her eyes empty sockets, and her lips curled into a malevolent grin. She extended a skeletal hand towards me, and a chilling voice echoed in my mind. "You should have never come here." With a surge of terror, I turned and ran, retracing my steps through the shifting, nightmarish maze of the mansion. The whispers and footsteps grew louder, more insistent, as if the very house itself were alive and hungry for my soul. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I burst through the front door and into the moonlit night. The mansion seemed to groan and shudder behind me as I fled, as if angry at my escape. I didn't stop running until I had put miles between myself and that accursed place. To this day, I can't forget the horrors I witnessed in that mansion, and I can't escape the feeling that something malevolent still lurks within its decaying walls, waiting for its next victim. If you ever come across an old, abandoned mansion hidden deep in the woods, I implore you to heed my warning and stay far, far away. The darkness that resides there is not meant for the living, and it hungers for souls like ours. In the heart of our small, sleepy town stood an old library, long abandoned and forgotten by time. The locals had whispered tales of strange occurrences within its decaying walls for as long as anyone could remember. They spoke of books that whispered secrets, of spectral librarians who shelved forgotten knowledge, and of a mysterious basement filled with forbidden tomes. Naturally, the legends only piqued my curiosity. One evening, driven by an insatiable desire for adventure, I decided to explore the abandoned library. Armed with a flashlight, I pushed open the heavy creaking doors, and the scent of old paper and mildew enveloped me like a shroud. The library's interior was a maze of towering bookshelves, their contents untouched by human hands for decades. The only sound was the soft patter of rain against the windows. I wandered deeper into the dimly lit labyrinth, my flashlight casting long, eerie shadows. As I perused the shelves, my eyes fell upon an ancient tome bound in worn leather. Its cover bore strange, intricate symbols that seemed to writhe and twist. I hesitated, but ultimately couldn't resist the pull of curiosity. Carefully, I pulled the book from its resting place and blew off a thick layer of dust. The pages of the book were yellowed with age, and the ink had faded to a ghostly gray. It was written in a language I couldn't recognize, yet as I flipped through the pages, the words seemed to rearrange themselves into something almost comprehensible. It was as if the book itself was trying to communicate with me. Just as I was about to put the book back on the shelf, I heard a faint whispering like the voices of countless people murmuring secrets into my ear. I shone my flashlight around the room, but I was alone. The whispering grew louder, more urgent, and it seemed to be coming from the book. With trembling hands, I began to read aloud from its pages. As I did, the room darkened further, and a spectral figure materialized before me. It was a librarian, dressed in archaic attire, with hollow eyes that seemed to bore into my very soul. The librarian spoke in a language I couldn't understand, but I felt the weight of its words pressing upon me. I knew I had invoked something beyond my control. Panic welled up inside me, and I tried to flee, but the room had become an inescapable nightmare. The walls closed in on me, the bookshelves leaned menacingly, and the ghostly librarian drew nearer. In a desperate bid for escape, I dropped the cursed tome and fled through a hidden door I hadn't noticed before. It led to a narrow, winding staircase that descended into the darkness. I stumbled down the stairs, my heart pounding, and finally emerged in a basement filled with an unsettling assortment of books. The room was lit by flickering candles, and the shelves were lined with volumes bound in human skin and written in blood. Symbols covered the walls, pulsating with an unnatural glow. I had stumbled upon the library's forbidden collection, a repository of forbidden knowledge. As I scanned the titles, I realized the horrifying truth. They contained the secrets of life and death, of unspeakable rituals, and of dark entities that lurked beyond the veil of reality. It was knowledge that should never have fallen into human hands. The basement seemed to come alive, and I felt an otherworldly presence surrounding me. I knew I had to leave, but I also knew that the library would never let me go. The candles dimmed and the walls closed in, sealing my fate within the shadowed library forever. Now, I am but a whisper in the dark, a spectral presence that haunts the abandoned library, forever trapped among the forbidden tomes and the malevolent librarian. And if you ever hear the faintest whispers on the wind, warning you of a forgotten library in a quiet town, heed my tale and stay far away. For the shadowed library hungers for curious souls, and once you enter, you can never truly escape. Pine Hill Manor had always stood tall and imposing on the outskirts of our town. It was a mansion that held more secrets than anyone dared to imagine, and it was said that those who entered its dark halls never returned the same. Despite the warnings, my friends and I, driven by a morbid curiosity, decided to spend a night inside its eerie walls. The moon hung low in the night sky as we approached the manor. Its ivy-covered exterior seemed to writhe like serpents in the pale moonlight. We entered through the heavy oak doors, and the air inside was thick with a musty, ancient odor. The mansion was a labyrinth of dark corridors and grand chambers, each more foreboding than the last. As we ventured deeper into the manor, we began to hear faint whispers that echoed through the halls. At first, we dismissed them as the wind playing tricks on our ears, but the whispers grew louder and more insistent, as if they were guiding us deeper into the darkness. We came upon a room at the end of a narrow hallway, and its door swung open of its own accord. Inside, a grand ballroom lay frozen in time, its chandeliers covered in cobwebs and its ornate mirrors tarnished with age. The room was illuminated by a strange ethereal light that seemed to emanate from nowhere. In the center of the ballroom, a grand piano sat, its keys untouched for centuries. As we approached, the piano began to play on its own, its haunting melody filling the room. We watched in terror as the keys moved by themselves, as if played by invisible hands. Suddenly, the room grew colder, and a figure materialized at the piano. It was a woman dressed in a tattered gown, her eyes empty and hollow. Her bony fingers danced across the keys, producing a mournful tune that sent shivers down our spines. She sang in a voice that sounded like a wailing wind, a lament for a long-forgotten tragedy. Unable to tear our eyes away, we listened as the spectral woman sang a tale of love and betrayal, of a forbidden romance that had ended in death. The room seemed to pulse with emotion, and we could feel the weight of the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls. As the song reached its haunting crescendo, the woman's form dissipated into mist, and the room fell silent once more. We fled the ballroom, our hearts pounding, and continued our exploration of the manor, haunted by the ghostly performance we had witnessed. Deeper still we ventured, until we reached a decrepit library, its shelves lined with ancient books and manuscripts. The whispers that had guided us grew louder, and the books seemed to beckon to us, their pages filled with eldritch knowledge and forbidden secrets. One by one, my friends were drawn to the books, unable to resist their siren call. They began to read aloud from the cursed tomes, their voices growing more frantic with each passing moment. I tried to stop them, but it was as if an unseen force held me back. As they read, the very walls of the library seemed to come alive, the room transforming into a nightmarish spectacle. The books writhed and pulsed, and the shelves closed in on my friends, swallowing them whole. Their screams echoed through the room, but there was nothing I could do. When the room finally fell silent, I was alone, surrounded by the cursed tomes and the malevolent presence that lingered within the library. I knew then that Pine Hill Manor held no escape for those who dared to enter its haunted halls. To this day, I am the sole survivor of that ill-fated night. I am haunted by the memories of my friends' screams and the spectral performance in the ballroom. I can never forget the darkness that lurks within Pine Hill Manor, and I can only hope that my tale serves as a warning to those who may be tempted to explore its haunted depths. For once you enter, there is no turning back, and the manor's secrets will consume you, body and soul.